Hello, welcome back to I Got Board
I got
Game.
board
I
game.
Got Board
Board
Game.
game.
I'm Ben,
John.
and we are here today to do another first impression video for you. And this time, actually, it will just be first impressions with John. So John is back.
Get out of the video. Get out of the video.
Yeah. Let me turn off my video. I don't
Just kidding.
deserve to post. Okay, so yeah, this will be a first impressions video with John. And so as we've been doing, recording these first impressions videos recently, the whole idea is that it's not a full-on review, but it's more of getting our thoughts out on the game after playing it just maybe once or twice, an amount of times that we don't feel like is necessarily enough to have a solidified, conclusive review and rating of the game, but still we have thoughts and want to get them out there now, before we don't play the game for a long time and kind of forget what we
Or we play it too many times and we don't remember the first time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, kind of to get down on record maybe how it hit us first, right? And then this specific video will be specifically just John's first impressions, because I have played this game, which I have not announced yet, but I have played this game, we will say, a lot of times now. And so I feel like I'm ready to actually do the review. And so I'm saving my thoughts for when we actually do a full review video. But I will just be here listening and judging John's first impressions.
I'm judging.
And so, but that game, the game that we will be hearing John's first impressions on today is
Bullet.
Bullet.
Bullet Heart.
Bullet Heart. So this is my copy of the game from Level 99 Games, their Kickstarter for it. This version is called Bullet Heart. And so there's basically going to be different symbols that they attach to the name of Bullet later on. So the game system itself, I think it's just called Bullet, but then each different set of characters, has a different symbol name. So this is Bullet Heart, the first one. There is Bullet Orange, an expansion. And then later on in the year, they have announced they're going to do a Bullet Star. And so all of them with different characters that you can play together in this Bullet game system. And so the whole idea of Bullet, though, is it's supposed to emulate in a board game form the bullet hell kind of video games, or shoot 'em up video games, or shmups. All the different ways you can say it. Those of you who are gamers will know, and those of you who don't will think it sounds weird. But basically, you can think of it as those, the very old versions of shoot 'em ups would be Galaga and Space Invaders. Those games where it's a top-down shooter on a video game, and you're a ship on the bottom and you're shooting upwards. Sometimes older games are also like sideways, but that's the general idea. You're a ship on one side of the screen shooting things coming at you from the other side. And so it's a very old school style of video game, been around for a long time, and then obviously has changed over the ages, eventually becoming very challenging in what are called bullet hell games. Those are basically shoot 'em up games developed specifically because people wanted more challenge. And it's called bullet hells because things are shooting tons of bullets at you, unlike in those really old ones like Space Invaders.
Think of a rave party and you're trying to dodge the lights in a rave party.
So yeah, so the game is meant to capture that in a board game tabletop form, and it does that by having you play a certain character in the world. All of them are females. That's kind of part of the setting. And it's done in this anime style, and you're basically going to have your own bag of bullet tokens, which you'll be drawing from in real time, right? There's no turns in this game, but you'll be drawing from it in real time, one at a time, and putting it into your own sight, or it's like your grid of bullets coming at you. And so you're going to keep doing that while also being able to choose when you want to spend your action points to maybe move some of the bullets around in your grid. And then eventually you want to try to clear the bullets by certain abilities or even your own pattern cards. Each character has their own deck of pattern cards, where if they can get bullets in a certain configuration in their grid, they can clear certain bullets, remove them, and you're basically removing them to send to your opponent. Because the whole idea is you're kind of trying to survive and make it harder for your opponents to survive, and you want to be the last one standing. And so that's kind of the general idea of how the game goes. Eventually, when we do a full review, we will show you more and go into a little more detail on how that plays. But with that said, I'll hand it over to John to at least give us your overall first impressions of this game.
Yeah, so we just played it just a week ago.
A week ago.
I was like, is it a week? It was a few days ago? A week ago. Where, COVID restrictions are slowly releasing and, we have our shots. So don't call us out. We're not in trouble.
Yeah, oh, sorry. But, I'm just gonna show the cover art while you're.
But yeah, so I got to play it for the first time. It's a game that I've been excited for playing for quite a while. Level 99s is a developer that I've enjoyed a lot of their games throughout the years. Things like Pixel Tactics, or War of Indies, I believe is the whole system. Or BattleCon, sorry.
Yeah, BattleCon.
BattleCon, which is like a 2-player board game fighting game. And then a couple of their other games. There's like a flicky shooter one where you have to like use the table to move around and stuff. So there's a few different styles. This developer is really well known for doing these very unique games and definitely trying new ways of playing board games in ways that maybe aren't traditional. So I've always enjoyed these developers. They have their own. They usually they have an IP that's their own, but this Bullet specifically doesn't use those characters from that universe that they typically utilize. But they're always very unique, and they're always really good at creating characters that are very different from one another and definitely have their own character, have their own personality, have their own feel to it. So already going into these first impressions, it still feels like it has the same thing here in this game, where we only played the game one time, but each of us were playing different characters. I was playing on this picture that's being shared right now, the top left character, the one with the baseball bat. I think she's a baseball loving gangster is her character.
Yeah, let me see.
Rie Akagi, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
As the character. And then Ben was playing I think the one on the far right, the Russian one. Russian looking girl.
Yes.
And then the couple other players that we were playing with, we're playing the archaeologist, I think is the bottom right one, and then the mathematician, which is I think the middle top one, if I remember all the artwork correctly. So as I was saying, right, each of these characters when we're playing the game all felt like they had their own unique styles. They don't have the same powers, and it was kind of really cool to kind of see everyone doing their different things on their boards. So I would say overall, so they definitely didn't fall on that side at all. So my initial impressions actually of the game of the gameplay itself is when I think of a shoot 'em up and this style of gameplay, I actually feel like it's supposed to be really fast and really active in the sense of especially in the current age of shoot 'em ups. You may have heard of, if you're gamers, you've probably heard of the Toho projects and other kinds of games. Those are the Japanese versions of these bullet hells and stuff. So if you've ever played those games, it's super jam-packed with a ton of bullets on your screen, and you're trying to move around and be active and getting all over the place with your character. So I will say with my initial impression of the game, I was actually a little surprised about how in my head or how I was playing it kind of felt a little slow of what I was actually expecting the gameplay to end up being like. It kind of felt like the bullets weren't coming as fast as I expected them, or it didn't feel that level of when you play the video games where bullets just kind of appear on the screen and there's just a bazillion bullets all at once coming at you. It didn't happen that way in the game, but I think it's also for a good reason, is because, as we've said before, this game is more of a as it says in the title too, it's a puzzle action game. So it's not, maybe necessarily designed to do that. But I will say it did throw me off a little bit because I ended up playing pretty fast because I was thinking, oh, this is a real-time game. This is a shoot 'em up game. So I've got to be going through all my moves. I've got to go as quick as I can as I'm placing my bullets as I'm getting attacked in the game. Whereas in reality, that's not really that important overall in the game. It's more important to actually do the puzzles of trying to clear your boards or trying to kind of figure out how do you make sure you don't die in the game, which is kind of really the biggest and most important part. That being
Now,
said,
I would say actually though that is based off your one play without a timer though.
also without a timer, that is true.
Where the main idea of the game I think is to play real time with a 3-minute timer for each round.
Which is true. And so with the first gameplay and with the people we were playing with, it probably wasn't the fastest that it could be played at, or with other players who were playing probably or potentially equally as fast. But there is and I think that was the other thing that threw me off a little bit about the real-time element. I think in my head, I was also expecting or assuming the sense of as I clear the bullet. So one of the things we talked about as a mechanic of the game is as you clear bullets from your row or your I think it's I forget the official term.
The sight.
The sights, yeah. So the site where the bullets are on your spread on your site, when you clear them, you're sending them over to the other player. So I think in my head, my envisionment of that activity is as soon as I'm sending over, as I clear bullets, they are immediately being put into the other player's bags, respectively. Or it's like those bullets are immediately showing up in their board, but that isn't the case in this game, where you do have a set limit or you have a set amount of bullet tokens that are in your bag, and then after they're in there, it's not going to increase for that round that you're playing. It'll increase the following round when you get into the next section, or like the next round of combat and stuff. So I think in that mind, I think it kind of reminded me, like I think almost the way I was thinking about it is a little bit like if you've ever played Spoons, where somebody's just picking up cards and then they're passing on their cards in the game of Spoons, and it's kind of frantic in that sense of movement of cards and things going on. I think that was the intention or the thought process I thought might have been or was kind of the aim of this game, where that wasn't. But that's just more my own personal thought of how it was supposed to feel. So it did throw me off a little bit when realizing that there is like a cutoff, or like there's once you finish playing all your bullets, then you're just basically waiting for the rest of the players to complete.
Mm-hmm. Like there's like a round structure too.
Yeah, so there is, so in this game there's still a round structure versus I think a lot of the real-time games that we've played, it's just continuous time that just keeps going on, so you're always just actively moving. So I think that was a little unexpected on my perspective, but yeah.
And so with that said, at least like that point first, getting into something specific about it, kind of wanted to help get some of your other thoughts out on this. And so what did you think about the, not necessarily the timing or the structure, but the actual mechanism of, pulling bullets from your bag and trying to move them around and fulfill patterns?
Yeah, so that mechanic, it's really clever, right? So as Ben was mentioning, right, like when you play this game, basically every round you're going to have a series of bullets that are in your bag, and as you continue playing through the game, you're going to have a bunch of bullets on your sights as you're playing through, right? And they're just going to stay there. So then the mechanic of the game is, as you're pulling these bullets out, what they'll do is they may kind of skip past the other bullets that are already on your board at that point, and which will eventually reach kind of the bottom. So if you're kind of thinking of like a Connect 4 grid or a Tetris grid, like those bullets seem to be coming down that way. So Space Invaders is kind of the same idea, where if you've ever played the game, the ships slowly go down until it basically hits you, right? So that's kind of the same mechanic in this game, where the bullets will have a number on them and they'll move that many empty spaces. So as they skip down, they'll hit where your life meter is at, and you only have a certain amount of hits that you can take. So I think it's a really clever mechanic because the way that they do it is these bullets will be coming no matter what. They're always in your bag. They will show up on your board at some point. But the interesting thing about the game is, well, how do I stop that? How do I get past it? Is that every character has actions that they can take where they can manipulate those bullets that are on the sites of the board. So they already have to be placed on the board. And every character will have different ways in how they can move the bullets around on that board, whether it's like just moving it left or right or moving it down, or certain characters have the ability to move diagonally, not just or orthogonic. Orthogonally. And so all kinds of different things. And because each character has a different way of doing it, and it's usually based on their powers or the way that they interact with their clearing cards, which we haven't talked about yet, it does make it a puzzle where it's not just I have to see what all the bullets are first and then decide what to do. It's as you're placing, these bullets on your board, you have to start thinking, should I be manipulating the pieces already, or should I maybe chance it and let more bullets come on to maybe give me a better way of clearing more bullets from my sights, or is it too much of a risk? So that part, I will say, did surprise me as well in the game, of the fact that it almost felt like this game had a lot of push your luck mechanics to it, which I think was also a little surprising because that's not one of the main, things that they said about their game, of like they don't call this game kind of a push your luck game or anything, right? But the fact that you do have to take that actually into account quite a lot as you're playing this game, of, is it worth it for me to just pull a new bullet to see where it lands or what it does on my sights, or should I use up my action points to move the bullets around on my board, or use up one of my clearing cards to just get rid of bullets because it'll at least make me protected for a few more bullets to hit me, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a very clever mechanic. I think it was a really cool way, and it does give you that element of playing the shoot 'em up, where it is kind of the sense of you as the character, because you don't have an avatar in this game. You don't have like a little figure that moves around on this sights board. Well, with exception of one particular character, but that's a different story. You're not really moving on this board. It's just making sure that the bullets don't hit you, right? So that kind of gives you that sense of like, if you were playing a shoot 'em up, it's kind of that sense of you're clearing out these attackers, right? Or these bullets that are coming at you. So it's like using a bomb, or using, clearing out these ships that are shooting at you. So you kind of get that sense of the game.
Yeah. On that, you were hinting at the clearing cards you said, or like the pattern cards. Like, how did you feel about how that was included, and even how they're maybe different for characters?
Yeah, so the clearing cards, because I only played one character, I can only speak officially to one particular character, though seeing the other players, especially one of the other players we were playing with, he was playing this character that I think I mentioned earlier, is kind of this mathematician character. So that other player had a very unique character in which what he needed to do, or what that player needed to do, was they effectively had to do math based on the card that he had. He had to do certain additions or subtraction. I didn't see the specific card, but he had to manipulate the numbers on the bullets on his board in a certain pattern that would help him, or allow him to then choose which bullets he could clear, or how many bullets he was allowed to clear, which is very unique and it's very different, right? And then my character was, as I was mentioning, I was playing the baseball gangster. So that character is pretty unique because hers is kind of about risk, like playing very risky, but trying to hit these big kind of clears or these big hits to ensure that she stays in the game, right? So it kind of plays with the gangster theme a little bit, because as a gangster, as the leader of gangs and stuff, she probably has a bunch of like minions and gangsters that can kind of soak bullets or take bullets. So her passive unique power is, depending on the clear card that's in her discard pile, she has protection from certain types of bullets that hit. So by timing which ones are in your discard pile, you can protect yourself from bullets that are coming to attack you. So that's pretty cool, but it's pretty risky, right? Because you don't know what bullet you're going to draw out of your bag. So that's a risky. And then the other thing about her, the clear cards for my character, is pretty much almost all of her cards cleared at least 3 bullets, which is actually a pretty significant amount. I don't know if many of the characters clear more than 3 bullets, or some of them only have like 2 clears, right, on their cards. So her character, it's like you had to set up in very specific ways, but if you had it set up in that way, you could really set it up for this really good like clearance of a lot of bullets at once. But some of them were like a row of or like a column of 6 in a row, which is pretty much almost every single spot filled up. So that's very dangerous and it's very risky, but by clearing 3 in that way, it's a really good clear in the game. So that's kind of how they play together to the strength. So it was pretty fun. I don't think I played the character correctly in that first gameplay. I'm pretty sure I definitely did things wrong with the character and didn't set things up to save myself, but it was still really fun. And it was a pretty interesting way of seeing how the character was. So
Yeah, neither of us won that game.
yeah.
Our hustler friend.
Yep.
She won. Shout out to Melissa, I'm saying your name, and
Yep.
Robert for playing that mathematician character. Those are the
There's a lot more brain power than I think you were expecting.
Yeah, it was all their first time too.
Mhm.
And so for Robert to play the mathematician the first time, that was getting him to focus a lot.
Did not have time for banter. So.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
And so then how did you feel about like the I mean, this is when I would kind of ask about like the real-time aspect and even just the overall length feel of the game, like all the kind of time aspects of the game. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, kind of in the early first impression part, I kind of wish it felt faster. So maybe if I played with the timer, so in future gameplays when I do get to play with an actual timer with players, maybe it'll feel a little better. Again, I think it kind of felt weird in the sense of the push your luck aspect of the game with this kind of puzzly part of the game. It was just not something I was expecting to actually be the case, which was kind of surprising for me, of the fact that I felt so surprised by this mechanic, because it's also kind of this like, how else would you do it? But for some reason in my head, I'm almost like, I almost feel like there might have been a different way that someone like they could have developed it, of how you get your bullets onto the board or something. But there is something about it maybe doesn't feel as fast yet. So once again, I'll need to do another playthrough, but it actually, ironically, it felt kind of slow. And it actually kind of felt like it doesn't feel as good as some other real-time games that we've played that are pretty much non-stop. Like you set a timer and then it's just, you just go and you just play your way. Probably the closest thing to my thought of how like the real-time feeling of the game would feel like is a game like Captain Sonar, where the game literally pretty much is real time and it's just as fast and as well as people on your team are playing, right? So I kind of felt that was the expectation I had in this game, given that that's the way that shoot 'em up games feel. Is in a shoot 'em up, you don't ever feel like you have turns. It's just like you've just got to be moving and you've got to be doing stuff in a shoot 'em up the whole time. Like you've always got to be active. You've always got to be paying attention to the bullets that are coming after you. So because there's these rounds that kind of stop action, or like basically like there's only so much you can do in a turn, and then, or in a round, not a turn, in a round, that once you're done with everything you can do in the round, you just sit and wait until every player's done and then set up for the next round to start. So I would say that part felt a little bit surprising for me. And again, maybe it was just my expectation coming into the game, hearing that it had the real-time element. And, you know, after subsequent plays, it might feel better to not do that. But I can also see why, because I mean, they also didn't technically market this game as a real-time shoot 'em up action puzzle game. It's just a shoot 'em up puzzle action game.
True.
So yeah.
And so, but then what about the overall length of that first session you played?
The game actually does run, or like in terms of rounds, it's pretty fast, right? Like I think I died on the 3rd round in the game when we played it. I was dead on the round 3, and then Ben and Robert died on round 4. So
Mm-hmm.
it was literally just a round later, then they were
Yeah,
dead,
something like
and then
that.
we knew who the winner was of the game. So I think once people learn how to play, so for the first game it did feel a little long, but that's also because a lot of us were learning how to play the game. But I think once you know how to play the game, I doubt the games run more than 15 minutes. It
Mm.
feels like it doesn't feel like it should run that long because it's also the way that the scaling of the bullets go in this game. So that's actually one of the cool, unique things as well in the game is as you're adding bullets into the gameplay for the game that you're playing, those bullets never like there's very few ways for making bullets actually leave the circulation, right? So basically, right, when we were talking about your sights on your board, is as you're pulling bullets and you're adding them on at the end of a round, you're grabbing them from kind of I think the center, and you're
Mm-hmm.
putting new bullets from the center into your bag. And then any of the cleared bullets, they don't go back into the center, they just go to your next opponent. So the bullets that are being cleared aren't actually being removed from the game, they're just moving to somebody else's board.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of those bullets are technically still in circulation because if that person clears those bullets, they just move on to the next player and the next player until it may come back to you. So that's actually one of the things that I think is good for this kind of game because it's the scaling mechanic that's not tied to any player and it just gets crazier and crazier until somebody is just going to die because they're just not going to be able to do anything, and that's kind of part of the game and that's fine, right? Like that's supposed to be part of it. So
Okay. And then I guess the last thing that comes to mind for me is how did you feel about the art, the components, production?
I'd say overall, I mean, Level 99's never really failed in my personal perspective about components and making sure things look good and stuff. So artwork wise, I think it's great artwork. Very colorful, very anime. So I like anime. So I like the anime styles in general. The artwork is pretty unique, and I know the subsequent expansions will have their own styles as well. They're not going to follow the exact same style of art, so maybe that's a pro or con for people. Um, but yeah, the art, I think it has this kind of anime look, but it also has this kind of like in some ways shadowed, but not like dark, if that makes sense. It's not super bright and popping in like the kind of jarring and hurts your eyeballs to look at kind of look, but it's definitely not uncolorful, I guess
Mhm.
is the case. It doesn't feel drab. Like every character has these specialized colors. The ones in the background, they are kind of faded in the background in this particular photo, but when you
Mhm.
actually see the actual artwork cards, it looks much nicer. It looks much better.
Yeah,
The other, yeah,
like like that.
yeah, like this, right? So that character in the previous artwork didn't look that much, but in this picture you can clearly see like this is artwork that is on the card. So like this is
Mhm.
something you will see when you play the game. So there's that. Components wise, I actually did have a little bit of trouble with one of the bullets. The two of the bullets.
Mm.
It's the red and the pink one, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
I did have a little bit of trouble because technically the symbols are different on those two, but the shape of the symbol is very similar to each other. And because the color is red and pink, they do kind of look similar. So if you're really not paying attention or you're not looking carefully, you may confuse those two particular bullets. The rest of the bullets, I think the color difference is enough and the shape of the bullets are significantly different, but those two, I think the red one is just it looks like a fireball, like the
Mhm.
standard fireball look from fantasy. But then the pink one, it's like a fireball with like a little like ring around it, or like a little like kind of like shockwave look on it. But it
Mm.
also looks like that fireball look. So I think at one point I did misplace a bullet when I was playing the game. I realized it afterward, and I was like, why? Because I was like, why do I have a pink this far on the side of the board? Because I was like, I didn't use that many actions to move it over, and I was like, oh, I think I put it there thinking it was a red. So
Mm.
that could I feel like that could happen from a component standpoint. But again, hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a problem. The cards are really cool. So the sites, everyone's site boards are the same. That's not that different. The sites do look cool in the game. Like it does look like a really nice grid. It's well designed. It doesn't have a lot of dead space on it. It's full art. so it covers the whole board. The character cards, as we said, they look really good. They all have unique powers. They have the description of their powers on them and their life bars on the bottom, which fits next to your grid very nicely. So it's very clear about what happens when a bullet hits you, that it goes all the way to the end of your marker. And then your actions bar, which is your character specific actions. That's also very clean in terms of showing all the different powers you have. Their symbology is really nice in the game, and they do leave spaces for your power-ups and other things in it as well. So I would say component-wise, it's really nice. I haven't played the solo mode or the boss mode, which I know Ben has a lot of playthroughs. I would be pretty interested in trying those out because it's also that kind of style of shoot 'em ups where you're fighting a boss monster or fighting a boss character, where that would be an interesting experience of rather than playing either you play it solo or you play cooperatively against this boss unit or this boss character that has its own powers and its own way of sending these bullets at you to try to defeat you as well. So that's a really nice aspect. But again, I haven't done it officially, so I technically can't say. I'm just excited for that one because this game is a puzzle game, it almost feels like the cooperative element might be more interesting for me, in all honesty, because when I think of puzzles, it's usually like you're trying to solve how to deal or handle a situation or something to fight against, and having an AI that you're fighting against kind of feels like it fits puzzles more for me from a play standpoint versus other players doing this puzzle, and somehow that my puzzle solving messes somebody else up somehow. So
yeah, and we'll probably get to try that soon, since like you do mention the boss mode is both the solo and the co-op mode. So so not to get people confused, like you can still play that mode with someone else.
Yes.
And if you don't prefer the competitive mode. And then something I would point out is that the bullets you were describing, like at least that specific component, that the version I had that I showed at the beginning of this, my version of Bullet Heart is the deluxe edition. And so the bullets are actually like thick wooden pieces.
Oh, yes.
And so that's what all my friends have experienced when I taught this game recently. And so this is maybe just me chiming in that instead of the thick wooden bullets, the regular version would be punch out tokens. And I'm wondering if you think that would impact your feel of the game if you're playing with those kind of tokens.
Yeah, that would be curious. I would be interested in seeing how that works, because at least when we were playing it, having the tokens, it felt nicer to pull out of the bag, like thick wooden tokens. Like that's just nicer because they're bigger, so it's easier to grab them. Versus I know I've tried pulling like, punch outs or like cardboard punch outs and things from a bag before. That doesn't feel great because you're kind of like scrounging, like how many did I grab or whatever, right? So that may not feel as great. But from a look on a board, I'm curious if that might look better, ironically. I'm not sure, right? Like, because it's like a punch out is much thinner and it's smaller and it just fits, right? Versus like the thicker tokens kind of stand out on it. So I'm not sure how that would feel. Like I'd be curious to see if even seeing something flatter on the board may look aesthetically better than like ironically like a bigger piece. But so the weight and of the components and the size of the components themselves, like it's good quality. It's not bad quality by any means. And it is good. And that's not the part that I was, concerned about, right? Like I think it is good quality production and stuff. And this again is the deluxe version. So if you're buying non-deluxe, you're not going to have this. Sorry.
I think
it's just more the coloring of those particular symbols was more the realization I had. But
and that is still the same with the punch outs. I mean, the bullet colors will be the same.
And
it's just whether it's thicker pieces or not. And I think that is the main difference with the deluxe edition, just that those wooden pieces or not. So that's just for you guys to know if you are curious about getting this game. I don't know if there's anything else you had as your first impressions on it?
Well, yeah, just to wrap it up, I think like it is a game I'm more interested in trying out a few more times. I think that's the part where my hope is if I try it multiple times and again without a timer or with a timer that actually kind of pushes the, I don't know if we should call it, well, it's sort of real time aspect, but kind of the get through your bag, right? Get through your bullets as quickly as possible, kind of thing. May make the game feel a little faster on a round by round basis. But I think I'm still excited about the game. After a few reviews, we'll see how my overall thought of what I would rate it will stay the same to what I expected it to be. And is it something where it's like level 99 has finally failed me? No, just kidding. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah. So I think that's overall. I think it's a great game. I think at the very least you should try it out. So if you know somebody who has the game, you should do it. Or I believe they also have the version online as well. You could play it online too.
Tabletop simulator.
The company has put it out there where basically it's kind of like their way of saying like, hey, free marketing. Like if you'd like to test out the game, try it out with friends online. Because it was also during like really a lot of the release of it was right during COVID, during the pandemic. So they're like, here is something that you can do with people while still not in person at least. So that might be a good way for you to try it out and see how it goes. So
okay. So yeah, thanks for your first impressions on Bullet Heart. And if you guys found this interesting, helpful, hope you'll actually, as John said, get to check out the game at least and see how it feels. But if this video and information has been helpful, hope you'll share it with friends, family, people you play board games with. Hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel and following us on Instagram at I Got Board Game. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.